So today we are celebrating still 7 years of the Profit by Design podcast. So first off, I want to say congratulations, Dr. Sabrina.
Yay. Awesome.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about the behind the scenes of the podcast because we have several clients who are very interested in starting a podcast. And some people have the makings of a podcast going, but they haven't dialed in their systems quite yet. So it's not very consistent. And we thought that we would just share this with you. So maybe you've started a podcast or you're considering starting a podcast to market your business and serve your clients. Well, today we're going to tell you all about what goes on behind the scenes. First, I want to get started with, we don't do it ourselves. So Dr. Sabrina, can you share your journey into discovering a podcast editor?
Yes. So as I mentioned in the last episode, I had a coach who had his own podcast. So he kind of filled me in on what's involved. And I decided that the best way to launch a podcast is to really immerse myself and learn everything that I could about podcasting. So I listened to podcasters who teach podcasting in my ear for hours and hours and hours. But the best thing that I did was I went to Podcast Movement. And there are multiple. Podcast Movement is one of the podcast conferences out there. There's multiple. But I went to all the sessions to just learn how to have a successful podcast. And I remember one session that I went to where they went into all the details about how to edit your episodes. And I looked at my co-host at the time, who was Mike Bruno. That's who I launched the podcast with. And he looked at me and I said, "Do you want to do this?" And he shook his head no. And I said, "I don't either. We've got to delegate." And so we were very clear from the beginning that the technical aspects were not our sweet spot, our personal sweet spots and strengths. And so we were going to delegate that. And I walked the floor at Podcast Movement. There's tons of editors at these podcasting conferences. And I talked to different ones. And I found the editing team that we use to this day. Through that. I also recommend that you talk to other podcasters and find out who's editing and what their experience is. I like to talk to at least 3. Like if you're going to hire an editor, talk to at least 3 because they have all kinds of different ways that they work with you. But it takes so much time, hours and hours and hours of time to edit a podcast episode because you really want your audio, even though video is very popular now, YouTube is a great place to go to find podcasts. If you have poor audio, you're going to lose your audience right off the bat. So you want someone who's going to put attention on good editing. And the other thing about good editing is it really takes the pressure off of you as the podcaster to be perfect. There are going to be glitches. There are going to be things that you missay, especially in the early episodes, just because the nerves are so high. So you want somebody who's going to pay attention, and you want somebody who will pay attention to any verbal tics that you have. So saying over and over is an example of a verbal tic. You want all of that edited out because you will lose your listeners. And you have that learning curve yourself of how to speak and get to the point. There's a lot of learning that you as the podcast host go through, and a good editor can reduce the pain of all of that learning.
Such good tips. Before we dig into the system side of it and how it works, I want to share the heart of it. So our podcast is our passion. It's our heart. It's where we show up to serve. And we have many listeners who have hung around with us for years and just aren't at the place where they can commit either time or finances into working with us in our coaching. This podcast is a way to serve them. And we love that. We love to be able to show up for them We also love the community that it builds, and our clients binge the podcast. And they love that we come on the podcast and do a deep dive into topics, and it feels like it bridges the gap for them. They have a piece of us between coaching sessions. And, you know, we're doing this really from our heart as a passion. So what I would encourage you to do if you're thinking of starting a podcast is lead with your heart, not with your head.
Yes.
So first off, just start there and say, what is it that I want to bring to the world to be of service? And anytime that I start to overthink about, oh, well, what are we going to talk about on the podcast? I just get in my heart and I say, what does someone need? What does a client, what does a friend, what does a colleague said that they're struggling with right now? And that's how we come up with the episodes. We ask our clients, what do you want to hear? And they tell us. So,
They tell us, but they also, a lot of times our episodes come from the things they don't tell us. It's the things we hear in our group calls, especially our Ascension group, which is our most advanced set of clients that are taking 4-week vacations and growing their teams, and they've overcome a lot of the challenges. We are hearing what they're still struggling with. And so as we're coaching in the weekly calls, we're bringing those issues into the podcast because we know if it's impacting our most advanced clients, that it's impacting everyone. And we really want to create an environment where if you discover us and you tune into an episode, like you're saying, oh my gosh, they get me. I want to listen to more. I want to know more about what they're talking about. And so it really just kicks off that relationship building.
it does. And we repurpose our content, and we're based off of experiences that most of our clients are going to need to navigate. We'll create a podcast episode for it. And a prime example of that, gosh, Dr. Serena, we did this years ago, how to hire an executive assistant. That's something that clients over and over again need support with. So we have several episodes about that our clients can just binge listen. So as you are considering what to talk about, think about things that are constantly coming up in your business.
And you mentioned this in the previous episode, but it's so important when you know the business sweet spot. You are able to identify the avatar of your top clients. So an avatar is a lot more than just demographics. It really is the head space and the emotional space of your top clients. AI has become a tremendous tool for us because we're able to upload our avatar into AI and ask, what is this person concerned about in today's economic and political climate? So we're really using that to, beyond what we're hearing our clients talk about, we're really using that to pull topics and bring things that are relevant for you. And so you really want to think about, how well do I know my top clients? Like where do they shop? What brands do they like, and why do they like those brands? What is it about those brands? What drives them crazy? What keeps them awake at night? You need to know that as you're creating podcast episodes, because those are the very issues you want to be speaking to.
Yeah, it gives you an amazing opportunity to ensure that potential clients that you're speaking to have the same values, and we call those immutable laws. So when you're showing up visibly on a podcast, you're able to establish that relationship, and a potential client can say, oh, well, this is how she speaks and this is how he acts, and I feel very aligned with their values. I think it would be a great relationship. So the podcast is a phenomenal tool for getting visible, serving your community, and reaching your goals. What I do want to share before we get into systems is a podcast is a very big undertaking. And maybe you're thinking, I've been on the fence about this. I'm not sure if I want to invest in my time and my finances into this. Be a guest on other podcasts first, and that will get great indication of whether this is something that you should pursue.
Absolutely. That's the best way. And think about the podcasts that you listen to. Reach out to those hosts and say, I've been listening for however long, and I have a story that will really connect. And it's not, you want to reach out from the perspective of, I will serve your audience. I understand your audience. I'm in your audience, and I have an experience that will serve others. And I would love the opportunity to share it. Those are the kinds of requests that podcast hosts will entertain. Don't blanket. It's just like, as a business owner, you hate when people blanket send their resume, and you're like, oh my gosh, you didn't even research my business. Don't blanket email a bunch of podcasts and try to get on, because we get those and we just filter right through and just keep, they go in the trash. And it's when you have something of value for the audience, and then you can experience what it's like to be behind the microphone. And a lot of times people get nervous about being a podcast guest. A lot of our entrepreneurs that we bring on are like, I've never been on a podcast before. I don't know what to do. It's just a conversation. It's just a conversation. And a good host will ask you questions, and the time will fly, and you won't even notice.
Yeah, we have the best success when there's no preparation. And this was something that I had to learn through your guidance, because I know I felt this way, but many of our guests would say, well, can I hop on a call with Dr. Sabrina before the podcast so that I know what she's going to ask and I get prepared? And my answer was always no. The conversations happen when you're not prepared and you show up as your true, authentic self. And you just trust that the listeners will hear the value that you bring, because that's what podcast hosts do. They pull out that most important thing because they know what their listeners want.
This really is learning how to trust your lived experience and the validity of your lived experience. We are on the Profit by Design podcast. We are all about being authentic, transparent, vulnerable, and real. And so that's why we don't want our guests to be over prepared, because then it sounds canned. And I want to say, like, it's not that you and I don't prepare, Melissa. You take time and you prepare and you identify, here are the 3 bullets we're going to talk about. But that's it. We show up and we've got our 3 bullets, and then we're just going to flow from there.
So let's talk about systems. I want to preface this with the fact that our systems were so dialed in. When you had to take off time unexpectedly last year, I just jumped in and just owned the podcast and took it over.
Yes.
And that could have been a really heartbreaking situation, because you had a podcast go out every single week at that point for 6 years. There was never a miss. So the systems are the key, having everything documented and the full process, and making sure that others on your team have access to all of the platforms that you're going to be using, that they understand the process. And this isn't a Dr. Sabrina show or a Melissa show. It truly is a whole team, as well as our podcast editors, our producers. So let's just talk about that and what it looks like. So first off, it starts at the heart. Like I said, it's determining what we're going to talk about. And we have systems. We use 3 different tools for the podcast. And that's our project management tool. We use Google Folders. And then we use a spreadsheet. So we have, I'm just going to get to the nitty gritty of it, because I know that's what everyone needs to hear. So we have a master spreadsheet that you and I work collectively on, as well as Heather, your executive assistant, because she supports us. And all of our episodes are planned out in that spreadsheet. And when we have these aha moments and these epiphanies, we'll just go in and dump ideas. Mm-hmm. So client brings something up in group, or if I hear something from a colleague or a team member, I just go ahead and put that idea in the spreadsheet. But everything is linked in the spreadsheet. And then in our project management tool, we have templates. And I remember when I took over the podcast, there were 65 tasks in that template. And I said, oh no, Dr. Sabrina, this is too many tasks.
So let's clarify, 65 tasks for one episode.
For one episode, multiple team members, but even looking at it, I was very, very overwhelmed. So that's another good point. When you bring in team members to support you and you're delegating to them, ask for feedback on how to make things easier, because as business owners, we blow things up and make it harder than what it needs to be.
Absolutely.
So we have every single step that it takes to produce and get that episode out in that template. It's already delegated to a team member. It's already assigned. All we have to do is go in and put in the due dates. So super simple. We use a platform, and I'll share what it is because you're going to want to know. We use StreamYard. Mm-hmm. So when we record our episodes, they go through StreamYard. It feeds live, and then it also holds that recording for us to put into our Google folder for each episode. Every week, those just get sent to our podcast editing team. And then once the team edits the episode, they shoot me an email and say, hey, the folder's all set up. And this is the beautiful part. And as you shared, you knew that you didn't want to own it. The edited recording, the graphics, everything is in there. And we just show notes. We listen to the episode, we review the show notes and go back if there's any edits, request those, and it's done. Now
and they publish it. So
and then
it releases.
They put it right on our website.
Yeah.
So that sounds simple. And again, that's 7 years of refining this process. So I'm just curious, as I'm sharing this, Dr. Sabrina, what is coming up for you to share with our listeners about just the process of what it takes to create a successful podcast? What am I missing here?
So I think one of the pieces is you also want your editing team to make sure that your podcast is being distributed to different platforms. So it needs to be on YouTube, Spotify, all the main places that people would be tuning in to listen and consume a podcast. And that can be simplified. Like, you as the host, you really don't need to be doing that yourself. You really should have somebody else doing that for you. Our investment, time, energy, and monetary investment in the Profit by Design podcast is our biggest marketing investment at Tap the Potential. It's the only paid marketing at this time that we do, because we pay our editing team. So that's the paid part. And it is something that we are, like Melissa alluded to, like, we are repurposing that content. We have multiple social media posts that come out of episodes. But the other thing that I do is I write articles based on our podcast episodes. So I use AI to take our podcast episodes and give me a draft of an article. And then I go in and revise it. And I'm submitting those articles in different places, like the Arkansas Business Review, and other places where, we're showing up and getting visibility from that. And so AI offers us a lot of opportunity to repurpose content and simplify that. The other way that we are using the Profit by Design podcast is in our other marketing, in our copywriting, really making sure that it's our voice. Mm-hmm. And it's authentic and real to us. So when we're able to upload podcast episodes into chat, and it will pull the content that is us. It's what we've said. It's our thought leadership. It's not someone else. And we're able to share that. So it's this constant cycle. It has accelerated our journey as thought leaders at Tap the Potential. To have this podcast. I learn so much, and it forces Melissa and I to come here and simplify everything that we teach, because we have to present it to you in 20 minutes or less.
Yeah, brilliant. One thing that is really important is that you track the ROI on your investment. So you want to establish KPIs, or key performance indicators, based off of your podcast. So what is that return on investment? How many people are listening through your website or through YouTube or other social media channels? You need to be able to track that. And what that's going to do for you is determine, is this a wise investment? It will help you determine where your audience is. And it'll also allow you to pivot. So I don't even know if I've shared this with you, but there's been some changes with Facebook. And I was checking our views on Facebook just this week, and our lives are down. So they've changed what is showing up on your pages. I can no longer go back and look at our investment of years of streaming this live on Facebook because they are no longer there. However, we have done our due diligence and captured the numbers of views. So now we know, is Facebook a place our business owners are hanging out at? So protect your property. Make sure that you are putting this content that you are creating on your website. That is valuable. No one can take that from you. So protect yourself first and foremost. And having these systems will help you streamline things. Just knowing that I can go back to this Google spreadsheet and see every episode that we've had is phenomenal, because if a client needs that or we need it for any reason, we have it there. So don't just shoot from the hip and just show up, record something, and then let it go. You really need to streamline your processes. And this is something that we support you with in the Better Business, Better Life program. So if you are thinking, I need to take that next step and I need to learn more, Caitlin, our sales team lead, as well as she's also our marketing lead, and she knows all about podcasts. She and I both have been podcast editors in the past, doing the things that weren't as glamorous. So if you want to know more, just book a call with her. Go to tapthepotential.com and book a call with Caitlin, and she would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Dr. Sabrina, is there anything else that you want to share as we wrap up?
I want to share how much I appreciate our listeners, because it's because you all share our episodes with other listeners that really has driven the growth of the podcast. And I think when you hear an episode and you think, oh my gosh, I wish so-and-so could hear this too. Well, send it to them so they can hear it. And help us keep serving the entrepreneurial community in that way.
Yeah, we love serving you. And when we're coaching, when questions like this come up, when you're trying to make a decision on, should I put my time into podcasting? Should I put my money into this? How do I even set it up? What are the systems that are involved? That's everything that we coach you through in the Better Business, Better Life program. So you do not have to do this alone. This is what we're here for. And we love sharing our behind the scenes with you and coaching you through how to do it yourself in the Better Business, Better Life program. So book a call today. And thank you for joining us. And thank you, Dr. Sabrina, for an amazing 7 years and the honor and privilege to be a part of it.
Thank you, Melissa.